must kill some Romans. It is perhaps the best way to understand the ways in which Roman society was resilient to the frequent pogroms and proscriptions of the late Republic and other eras. It is the ultimate test to understand the ways Rome's social network reacted under stress. Romans must die for me to explore this question, which of course does present some obvious practical issues. Not insurmountable, of course. Agent-based modeling allows me to raise Romans from the dead over and over, and to give them patterns of interaction known from the archaeology. As it happens, stamped Roman bricks fossilize nodes of social interaction, and so that can become the substrate for a simulation of social power. So I raise them up, I give them artificial life, and then I kill them. At one point, I even had a smite button, until I learned how to let my agents decide for themselves when and how to kill each other. There is something mesmerizing as I watch this artificial life creep and fight its way across the screen. My agents harbor grudges. They nurse wounds and social slights. They take their revenge. Wouldn't you want to play this game? Climb the social ladder in Rome, help your clients, and find yourself better patrons. But make sure you don't make too many enemies, or you too will lose. Game of Togas. It doesn't take much to flip an agent model into a video game, does it? As I watch the screen and tell the story of what my digital Romans are up to, as they live and as they die, it becomes easier and easier to believe that I'm actually watching something true about the past. In Foucault's Pendulum, the late Umberto Eco tells a story where the protagonists feed a computer with vast amounts of information, very digital humanities-ish, to devise a conspiracy theory, you know, for fun, to determine a truer story of European history. Things take a turn for the worse when the men begin to believe that the simulation is mapping out an actual, real truth. And even more dangerously, others come to believe in it too. This being a thriller, people end up dead, of course. This, it strikes me, is a common problem to both gaming and to simulation. We succumb to the beauty of the digital landscape, a world that turns around the player, who is me, the creator, who is me. In another context, I've called this big data Gothic. In both video games, in agent simulations, and indeed big data applications, we have a kind of control, an agency, a power that we do not have in other aspects of our lives. The seductiveness of this power blinds us. When we are very good at a game, we have internalized the rules that govern the game and its story. We perform the vision of the world that its creators encode. When we are very good at simulation, we similarly have internalized the ways in which code can be used to tell stories of the world.
Malkovich. Malkovich, Malkovich. Malkovich, Malkovich. Malkovich, Malkovich, Malkovich. Malkovich, Malkovich.
In which case, if we're interested in archaeogaming, it might be worth thinking about the methods that have evolved to guard against this tendency in modelers. If we are interested in mere simulation, it might be worth thinking about the methods used to understand games, to guard against this tendency in gamers. This morning, then, I would like to expand on some of the ways agent modeling in video gaming might intersect, particularly in terms of how we evaluate the success or failure of both to do good history as a contribution towards the methods of archaeogaming. After all, archaeology has always been concerned with understanding virtual worlds, whether those worlds are built from stone, wood, or concrete. It's just that now we must understand the worlds built from sand and electricity as well. The difference between games and agent simulations is not so vast. An agent-based model is, in fact, just a special class of video game where the player, in point of fact, does not play. She sets it all up, and then sits back to watch and see how that world reacts. She's interested in the whole world interrelationships. The player of games, on the other hand, is necessarily interested in reactions to his own actions. In some respects, one could make the analogy to social network analysis. Simulation is to whole network analysis as a video game is to ego analysis. And that's just a tortured and clumsy way of saying perspective is everything. If archaeogaming is going to become a serious pursuit, I think the first lesson we can take from agent modeling concerns time and space. The way that time is treated in agent models is critical. Time is malleable, so that there is time for something to take place. It makes a difference to your model whether or not your agents update themselves one at a time, each one running its procedures sequentially, versus in parallel, for instance. Emergent effects that can seem profound or meaningful might only be an artifact of how time is imagined. Then there is the time within which something might take place. Terry Pratchett's Thief of Time calls this the universal tick, or the minimal amount of time it takes for now to become then. Agent models tick in time with the computer's clock. Does processor clock time have any meaningful analogy to historical time? Similarly, agent models happen in a kind of space. The space can be a flat two-dimensional world subject to edge effects that can muddy the water. In some models, the left-hand side of the world connects to the right-hand side, and the top connects to the bottom, giving us a donut or a torus shape. In others, the space is a social space. It's the gap between social actors, that is to say, a network. How does space work in the games that we are analyzing from an archaeogamer perspective? Espen Arseth years ago devised a typology for video games that depended upon considering several different axes of analysis: space, time, player structure, control, rules. As we begin to devise the methods for archaeogaming, I want to suggest that we pay attention to space and time in his formulation. Space contains perspective, topography, and environment, and time contains pace, representation, and teleology. Whether the virtual world we are analyzing is in meat space or cyberspace, these categories usefully force us to concentrate on space and time in meaningful ways. These categories help us understand what agent-based models are doing as well. In terms of space, my model, Romans Must Die, which I published as Patron World in the Journal of Digital Studies a few years ago under the title Behavior Space, which I appreciate might be a bit confusing, has an omnipresent perspective.
I see all. I can peer into each agent's life at will. The environment is geometric. The world in which these Romans move is static. The conditions do not change during the run. In terms of time, the pace is turn-based. Each Roman updates in turn. And time is mimetic. It takes time for the Roman to achieve something. Time is teleological in that the Romans have clear goals and ambitions in mind. As you can see, Romans Must Die occupies an interesting space between Caesar 4 and Civilization 4, which just happen to be the two games I have handy on this computer. Let's put the shoe on the other foot. How do Caesar 4 and Civilization 4 hold up against the standards used to understand agent-based model? Well, let's use Iza Romanowska's framework for evaluating agent models. For Romanowska, the key elements to explore are scope, appropriateness, resolution, complexity, parsimonious parameters, and utility. Scope and appropriateness deal with research questions. Are we building a model to explore a hypothetical or to understand patterns in the data? Caesar 4 it clearly has a research question. How does experience in the provinces make a man fit to govern in Rome? When I reframed Romans Must Die as a game in my opening, help your client succeed, find a patron to help you succeed, I was framing a question about the role of patronage in generating social structure in Rome. Appropriateness. Is a resource management sim an appropriate tool for answering the questions about governance? Resolution. Caesar 4 shows me individual Romans with whom I have to interact. That may be too low a level, given the scope and appropriateness. Parsimonious parameters? Well, how many knobs and dials can I twiddle? What and where and how are their feedback loops? Complexity theory here teaches that, well, simpler is better. Utility. Not, is this a fun game, but rather, what have we learned? How are we changed? Finally, I put it to you that one of the most powerful ways that archaeogaming could intersect with a digital public archaeology becomes evident if we consider the original purpose of the NetLogo agent-based modeling environment. NetLogo was originally designed to teach students about complex phenomena by getting them to observe the ways small parameter changes could affect the global behavior of the complex system. Later today, we'll hear about Evolving Planet, which takes a similar approach to making archaeological agent-based models gameful for a wider public audience. It is a tremendous project, and I will say no more about it lest I preempt Xavier's comments. But what if we put the players into our agent-based models? Not just tweaking the global, but engaging the model in the first person, holistic and egocentric at the same time. NetLogo comes with an extension called HubNet, which allows individuals to take on the role of a single agent within an otherwise fully digital simulation. The NetLogo people call this participatory simulation. Is there room in archaeogaming to merge humans and machine-made societies? That tools change us, even as we use them, is a truism of archaeology. Archaeogaming perhaps is a way to understand what this digital moment is doing to our humanity. Game studies, especially when we play the past, are bogged down in ludology, narratology, and questions of what constitutes authenticity. These, I put to you, are dead ends when it comes to archaeogaming. If the archaeological eye is useful for understanding the virtual worlds of the past, then the things we see as archaeologists in the virtual worlds of the present need to be grounded in the methods and techniques of archaeology. Rigorous typologies of time and space, coupled with perspectives on agent modeling validation techniques, I think are the way to get this subdiscipline up and running. And for this, these Romans must die.
The more we get together,